Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back Behind the Curtain.
I'm one of your hosts, Shertza Chimerlo.
I'm Tegan Patton, and today's guest is Olivia Miller. How are you doing, Olivia? I'm
good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. All right, so you ready to get in some questions?
I think I am.
So what's your favorite hype song before the game?
Oh boy. Okay, well, this is going to sound cheesy because I think it's kind of an overplayed and overrated song, but it's just like our team song, Body by Loud Luxury. It always plays in our stadium because it's, I think, language appropriate, but it gets our entire team like jumping, dancing, singing. Like it's definitely probably my favorite hype song for that reason.
Also, speaking of your game, who did you model your game after?
Well, when I was younger, I was actually a pitcher, so I really wanted to be just like Jenny Finch. And then I kind of stopped pitching at least. So I was kind of like, all right, I got to find someone else to, figure out who I want to be like. And when I was little, when I would come to the ASU games, I was obsessed with Alex Johnson. She was an outfielder. And I feel like she was on the 2008 and the 2011 team. But I just really remember loving her and the way she played, and she would sign my cleats. And I thought that was so cool. So when I started transitioning to playing outfield, I kind of modeled my game after her a little bit.
If you could play any other position, what would it be?
Well, I think it'd be really cool to be an infielder. Like, I would really love to play shortstop. I'm so not capable of doing that. I'm afraid of the ball, like ground balls on the dirt. They just come so fast and it's scary. They take bad hops at your face.
Do you prefer hitting or do you prefer defense?
I'm hitting. Since my role kind of switched this year and now I'll be more of just a pinch runner, I won't be practicing defense this season anymore. And that's totally fine. Like I said, have the whole afraid of the ball and the bad hops. So yeah, I'd have to say I prefer hitting a little bit more to defense for sure.
So on those days where it's like you have to wake up early and you don't feel great and everything's just hard, like what motivates you on those off days?
Coffee. My teammates, most days that I'm like, I just don't want to go today. I just can't. Like, I love my teammates. I have a couple of friends that I'm really, really close with. And then all the other girls who I'm not like best friends with, we're still all like great friends. So getting to see them every day is always a plus for me because I don't live with them. So it's, a nice way to get away. So for me, it's just like getting to be around the people that I love the most and spending time with them, even on the days that you're super sore and don't want to get out of bed or just don't want to go spend 3 hours of practice running.
So switching gears a tiny bit, but what's your favorite childhood movie?
Oh boy. I wouldn't say I'm not a Disney person. I do like Disney movies, but I was more of a Harry Potter girl growing up. I love Harry Potter. I think if I had to put a favorite to it, I think I really like Prisoner of Azkaban, so that's the third movie, or Goblet of Fire, which is the fourth movie.
When you're not playing softball, what are you doing in your free time?
Oh boy, I don't have much free time these days, but I like to go thrift shopping. Also, it's also hard because it's COVID, but in general, I would say that in my free time, I like thrift shopping, all kinds of thrift stores. Look for all kinds of things too. Clothes, knickknacks, things I don't need, things I do need, that kind of stuff. I like to garden and like indoor plants and outdoor. Actually, my roommate and I spent like a lot of time outside during quarantine when it was still nice out. And we like redid our backyard and planted like a couple different gardens back there.
A little more about you. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I really don't like people who lie. To me, I'd rather just hear it straight up. Like, just tell me. Don't beat around the bush. Don't lie about it. I don't know. That's just a big thing for me. Another thing that annoys me is when people don't vote. That's another pet peeve.
You mentioned your voting stuff earlier. What inspired you to start your voting project that's been just all over Arizona news?
I guess at ASU it started a couple of months ago. Well, by now it's way more than a couple. What month is it? Almost October? So it was in February. Presidential primary was coming up in March. I knew that the deadline for Arizona to register to vote in that was quickly approaching. I knew that my teammates had no idea, how to register to vote, when to register to vote, where to register to vote. And I would send them like in the group chats, because we were mostly last year a California, Arizona roster. I would send information to my team about like, okay, here's California's deadlines, here's Arizona's, here's the websites, this is what you need for both. And they just looked at the message. They're like, yeah, Olivia's the political one. So it didn't really get far with that, but then it made me think like, well, if my own teammates don't know much about anything in this regards, I don't mean that offensively, just literally it's something that they're not weren't aware of. I was like, there's probably a lot more student athletes who know nothing about any of this either. And that's the reason for that is because we're so focused on sport, and we don't have time to think about anything else in the world when we have sport and then on top of that school. I decided that I was at least going to give some information to people who wanted to hear it. So I went to Dina Garner and I told her, I said, Dina, I'm going to make something. I'm going to present it at SAC. Is that okay? Yes or no? And she was like, 100%. She's like, I don't even need to look it over. Like, I'll just have it printed out by the time you get here today and you can hand it out to the SAC meeting. So that's what I did. They held some space for me for like, 10 minutes. And I just kind of talked a little bit. I was so nervous that time speaking, which is so funny looking back because now all the people I've talked to up until this point, like seriously, that was nothing compared to some of the things I've had to do since. But I was so nervous, like I just figured these people didn't care much and they weren't really paying much attention. But there's a couple, there's a couple people, and as long as you're reaching a couple at first, that's how you're doing something right. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Was in February, back before the president's primary started. I decided that something had to be done about this. And then once we held a student athlete forum, I think late May or maybe first couple days of June, in regards to George Floyd's death, and they wanted to hold space for student athletes to speak on this. So after that meeting, all the student athletes who had kind of like spoke out were going to be put into this other student group. And they reached out to me and asked if I would be in it because of my previous drive to want to get people registered to vote in February. So they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And then that's kind of how it all actually started in the early summer.
Definitely. And do you feel like a huge part of the reason that people our age don't really vote is because of our lack of accessibility to this kind of information?
100%. Most commonly, it goes one of two ways. I think people either know what their parents know and are just going to be, for lack of a better term, blindly following that, or they know what their parents know and want nothing to do with that, so it completely deters them from politics. And because most of us at this age don't have this awareness, education, understanding of the political field at all. Besides, I don't know about you, but I had a very small government and economics class that talked about it. And I was in AP classes and I still barely understood, how all this stuff works. So that to me, there's no understanding, like you said, of people our age. If you're not down to follow what your parents told you to, then you're not going to really go out of the way to, learn about this. So people our age are so apathetic to it for a lot of reasons, but that is definitely one of them, that there's just not a large understanding of how politics, policy, legislation, any of it works. And I think that is a huge issue in this country.
So kind of to one of our last questions, 942 crew or Zona Zoo?
942 crew all the way, obviously. ASU, baby. Go Devs.
And we have a third interviewer. He's rather tall. His arms are kind of awkwardly short, but he's a little insecure about that, so just don't mention it.
Oh, goodness. Hey, Rex.
First off, if you could be any dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be?
Ooh, what's the one with the really long neck?
Brontosaurus. So, obviously, I'm a carnivore. Are you also a carnivore or are you an herbivore?
I really like chicken, so I think I'm going to go with I'm also a carnivore.
Ooh, chicken. I've never had that. I only have smaller dinosaurs. If you were to play softball with me, what position would you have me play?
I think third base, because you could block those balls that come at you really fast. And then since you have some short arms, it's the shortest throw. So you could, just kind of limp it across a little bit. I think you'd be perfect for third base.
I'm in the curtain distraction. I personally think I'm the best skit in the curtain distraction. But if it's not me, which I hope it is, what's your favorite skit?
Definitely you.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thanks for talking with me this week, Olivia. It's been a pleasure.